My younger sister slept with my husband for 3 months in my house, then asked me to leave because she was pregnant. But when I revealed Jason has nothing, and everything is mine, the truth destroyed them all. I'm 34 years old. I own my own digital marketing business, and a month ago, my life exploded in the most absurd and painful way you can imagine. I'm telling this because I need to get it out of my system, and because honestly, there are still days when I can't believe this is real, that my own sister and my husband would do something like this to me. I guess I should start from the beginning, when I still believed I had a family that loved me and a solid marriage. My sister Nicole, 6 years younger than me, was always the baby of the family, that person everyone protects and helps no matter what. I was the responsible one, the one who studied business administration, worked like crazy, and by 28 managed to open my own agency. Nicole, on the other hand, went from job to job, never found her place. And my parents, William and Carol, always had an excuse for her, that the boss was an idiot, that her coworkers were toxic, that they didn't pay her enough. I loved her a lot anyway. She was my little sister, and I felt I had to take care of her, especially after Mom died when I was 22 and she was 16. Dad remarried Carol like a year later, and she was always kind to us, or so it seemed at the time. I met Jason when I was 29. He was 31, handsome, charismatic, and told me he was a freelance writer, that he worked from home writing for magazines and working on his novel. I thought it was cool, like a sensitive artist and all that. We got married after 2 years of dating, and I was happy because I had finally found someone who supported me, who wasn't jealous of my success, who stayed home writing while I ran the business. The truth is, I made enough for both of us, so it was never a problem that he didn't contribute much financially. We were good, or at least I thought we were good. Last year, like in August or September, Nicole lost her job at a clothing store. To make matters worse, like 2 weeks later, she got seriously sick with West Nile virus, that thing you get from mosquitoes. She was hospitalized almost a week, and when she got out, she was super weak, couldn't work, and basically had no money even to pay her rent. My parents live in a small 2-bedroom apartment and didn't have space for her, so I, as the successful older sister with a 4-bedroom house that I bought with my money before getting married, told her she could come live with me while she recovered and found another job. Jason told me he thought it was fine. That family is important and Nicole needed support. I thought, how lucky I am to have such an understanding husband, such a good person. God, how stupid I was. Seriously. Nicole moved in at the end of September, and at first everything seemed normal. She spent most of her time in her room because she was still weak. Jason continued with his writing routine in his office, and I kept working like crazy. Sometimes 12 hours a day because we were closing some important contracts with 2 new clients. What I didn't know, what I had no fucking clue about, was that while I was at my office doing everything possible to keep the business growing and paying all the household bills, my husband and my sister were fucking in my house, in my bed probably, using my money to go out to eat when I wasn't around. It went on like that for about 3 months. October, November, December, and I didn't see anything. Didn't suspect anything. Nicole started looking better, more animated, and I thought, good that she's recovering. Good that family love is helping her heal. Jason seemed happier too. More attentive to me even. And I thought maybe having someone else in the house was good for him. That he didn't feel so alone during the day. Then came January. Specifically, January 15th, a Tuesday I'll never forget. I got home around 7 in the evening, exhausted because I'd had meetings all day, and found Nicole and Jason sitting in the living room, very serious, like waiting for me. I thought something bad had happened, that someone had died or something, and I got scared. I sat down and Nicole looked at me, and what came out of her mouth was so absurd, so completely surreal, that at first I didn't process it. She said, "Lauren, Jason and I are in love. I'm pregnant with his baby, and I need you to leave this house because we're going to start a family here." Just like that, with those exact words. I sat there staring at her, waiting for her to say it's a joke, but she didn't. Jason didn't say anything either, just looked at the floor like a coward. I felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water on me, like the floor was opening up beneath me. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight, and the only thing that came out of my mouth was, "What?" Nicole kept talking, super calm, like she was discussing what we were going to have for dinner, saying that they had connected in a special way while she was recovering, that Jason really understood her, that I was always working and never had time for him, and that it was better this way, that we should all move on with our lives. And then, and this is what finished killing me, she told me that since the house was technically Jason's and mine, but Jason was going to stay with her, I should go live in a hotel or with my parents until we sorted out the divorce. That's when my brain finally started working again. I said, Jason's and my house? Nicole, this house is mine. I bought it before marrying Jason. It's in my name. He doesn't own absolutely anything here. And I saw how Nicole's face changed, how she went from that stupid confidence to total confusion. She turned to look at Jason and said, You told me this was your house, that you had bought it with your money from your books and articles. And Jason, that piece of shit, still didn't say anything, but now he was pale. I started laughing. I don't know why. It was a hysterical and bitter laugh. And I told Nicole, He told you that? Did he also tell you he's a millionaire? That he has properties? Because that's also a lie. Sister, Jason doesn't have a penny. I pay for everything. The house, food, his clothes, everything. He hasn't sold an article in years, and his novel doesn't exist except in his imagination. I saw how Nicole turned red, how her eyes filled with tears, and she yelled at Jason, Is that true? Did you lie to me? Jason finally spoke, and what he said was pathetic. He started stammering that yes, he had exaggerated his finances a bit because he wanted to impress Nicole, that he thought if she knew he had no money she wouldn't want him, that he felt insecure because I made so much and he didn't. Nicole started crying and yelling at him that he was a liar, that he had ruined her life, that now she was pregnant with a man who had nothing, and I was standing there watching this whole circus in my living room, in my house, and something in me broke. I told them, You both have exactly 30 minutes to get your stuff out of my house, and if you're not out in half an hour, I'm calling the police. Nicole stared at me like I was a monster and said, Lauren, I'm your sister. I'm pregnant. You can't throw me out on the street. And I told her, You should have thought about that before fucking my husband in my own house. Now move. Jason tried to approach me, tell me we could talk, that he could explain. And I backed up and yelled that if he touched me, I would scream. It was the longest 30 minutes of my life. Nicole cried while she stuffed her things into 2 suitcases. Jason did the same in silence, and I stood at the living room doorway with my arms crossed, watching the clock on my phone. At 28 minutes they left, and I locked the door behind them. I sat on the floor in the entryway, and then I allowed myself to cry. I don't know how long, maybe an hour, until I had no more tears left. The next morning, like around 10, I got a call from my parents. My dad was furious, yelling at me about how I could have thrown my pregnant sister out on the street, that she was at their house crying, that Jason had also gone there and told them everything, that I was a heartless daughter who put money and pride above family. Carol was also on the line telling me I should forgive, that family is forever, that these things happen, that Jason was sorry and depressed, that Nicole made a mistake but we all deserve a second chance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told them, Are you serious? My husband cheated on me with my sister in my own house? She told me to leave my house? And I'm the bad guy here? And my dad told me that didn't matter, that Nicole was my younger sister, that she had always been fragile, that I, as the successful older sister, should be the more mature one and forgive. I told them they were crazy, that Nicole was 28 years old, not a child, and that both of them had betrayed me in the worst possible way. My dad told me then that if I didn't let Nicole come back to the house, and if I didn't give Jason another chance, they didn't want to know anything about me. And I told them, Perfect. Don't call me again. And I hung up. That same afternoon, I contacted my lawyer, an incredible woman named Rebecca, who handles my business contracts. I told her everything, and she said we would file for divorce immediately, that since everything was in my name and we didn't have children, it was going to be relatively simple. We just needed to prove the infidelity, and that's it. She explained the process. Told me it would take a few months, but that Jason had no rights to my properties or my business. It was a huge relief to know that at least legally I was protected. During the following days, my parents kept calling me, leaving me voicemails where they told me I was being cruel, that I was dividing the family, to think about the innocent baby on the way. Carol sent me like 10 text messages, saying she never thought I was so cold, that my mother would be disappointed in me. That last part hurt me a lot, because my mom had died and she couldn't defend me or say what she would really think. Finally, after like 5 days of constant harassment, I blocked them both. I blocked their numbers, their social media profiles, everything. Jason also tried to contact me. He sent me a super long text message, like 3 pages, where he explained that he had been depressed for years, that he felt useless because I made all the money, that Nicole had been kind to him and listened to him, that one thing led to another, that he never meant to hurt me, that he loved me but also developed feelings for Nicole, that he was confused and scared, that he lied about the money because he was ashamed to admit he was a failure. And he ended the message saying he understood if I didn't forgive him, but hoped that someday we could talk and I could understand his perspective. I read it twice, not because I was considering forgiving him, but because I couldn't believe the level of self-justification and victimization this guy had. Did he really think I was going to feel sorry for him? That I was going to say, "Oh, poor Jason. He was sad, so he had the right to sleep with my sister?" I didn't respond a single word. I simply blocked him too, just like my parents. I thought that would be the end of the drama, that everyone would finally leave me alone and I could start to heal, to process all this. But no, because like 3 weeks later, around the end of February, my parents showed up at my house. They rang the doorbell on a Saturday morning. I was in pajamas, drinking coffee, and when I saw through the security camera that it was them, I honestly considered not opening. But I knew if I didn't open, they would keep ringing, and I didn't want the neighbors involved in my drama, so I opened the door. My dad came in first, followed by Carol, and before I could say anything, he started with the same speech, that Nicole was suffering, that she had no money, that she was living with them in their small apartment and there wasn't enough space, that I had 4 empty bedrooms and was selfish, that Jason was desperate to come back to me and fix things. Carol added that they weren't going to be able to help financially with the baby, that I, as an aunt, should help, that blood is more important than anything else. And that's when I ran out of patience. I told them, "Listen to me very carefully because this is the last time I'm going to say this. Nicole betrayed me in the worst possible way. Jason betrayed me in the worst possible way. And you, instead of supporting your daughter who was the victim of infidelity, are defending the ones who hurt me. I'm not going to help Nicole. I'm not going to forgive Jason. I'm not going to be an aunt to that baby. And you are not welcome in my house ever again. Please leave." My dad turned red with rage and told me I was a terrible daughter, that I had become bitter because of money and success, that I had lost what really matters in life, which is family. Carol was crying, saying this was going to kill my dad from stress, that I was responsible if he had a heart attack. I opened the door and told them, "Goodbye, leave now." My dad looked at me with a hatred I had never seen in his eyes and told me, "Okay, Lauren, if that's what you want, don't ever come looking for us. To us, you no longer have family. We're dead to you, and you're dead to us." And they left. I watched them leave from the window, get in their car, and when they disappeared from view, I sat on the couch and stayed there. I don't know how long, just staring at the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't have tears for them anymore. I just felt an enormous emptiness, like someone had ripped out a part of me and left me hollow. I had lost my husband, my sister, my parents, my entire family, in a matter of a month. The following weeks were super weird. On one hand, there was the divorce process, which Rebecca handled perfectly. Jason signed all the papers without fighting because he knew he had no rights to anything. On the other hand, there was my business, which kept functioning perfectly because I took refuge in work. I threw myself fully into new projects. We hired 2 more employees. I closed 3 big contracts. My partners, who are also my friends, knew something had happened, but I didn't tell them the details. I just told them I was getting divorced and needed to keep busy, and they understood and supported me. But at night, when I got to my empty house, that house that was supposed to be my refuge and was now full of horrible memories, I felt lost. I hired someone to come deep clean the whole house, changed the sheets on all the beds, painted 2 rooms including mine, bought new furniture. It was like I was trying to erase any trace of Jason and Nicole, of that version of my life that turned out to be a lie. It's been like 5 weeks since I threw out Jason and Nicole, and the divorce is going to be finalized probably in 2 more months. Jason hasn't tried to contact to me again. Neither have my parents, and I haven't unblocked them, and I'm not going to unblock them. Nicole, according to what I heard from an acquaintance we have in common, is still living with my parents. The baby is going to be born like in August or September, and Jason is living with a friend of his because obviously he has no money to rent anything. I'm not going to lie and say I'm perfect. that I'm over everything, because it's not true. There are days when I feel good, strong, sure that I did the right thing. And there are days when I wonder if I should have handled things differently, if I was too harsh, if I should have tried to understand more. But then I remember Nicole's face when she told me to get out of my own house. I remember Jason sitting there in silence, letting her say that. I remember my parents telling me I was the bad guy. And the anger comes back. And I know that, no, I wasn't too harsh. They didn't deserve my forgiveness. I started therapy 2 weeks ago with a psychologist who specializes in family trauma, and it's helping. She tells me that setting boundaries doesn't make me cruel, that protecting my mental peace doesn't make me selfish, that I don't owe anything to people who hurt me so deeply. She also tells me it's okay to feel all the emotions, the anger, the sadness, even sometimes missing my family even though they betrayed me, because at the end of the day, they were part of my life for a long time. What I do know is that I'm not going back. I'm not going to let Nicole back into my life. I'm not going to forgive Jason. I'm not going to open the door to my parents. Maybe that makes me a terrible person, according to them. But for me, it makes me a person who finally learned to value herself, to not accept crumbs of love and respect from people who showed they don't really love me. My therapist says, I'm grieving. Not just for the marriage, but for the family I thought I had. And that turns out never really existed. The business is doing at me better than ever. I closed a huge contract last week with a tech company that's going to triple our income this year. I hired a new designer who's brilliant, and we're planning to open a second office. My friends have been incredible. They organized a surprise dinner for me a few days ago just to remind me that I have people who truly love me. One of my friends, Karen, told me, Lauren, you didn't lose a family. You freed yourself from toxic people who never valued you, and now you have space to build something better. I don't know if Karen is completely right, but I want to believe her. I want to believe that this isn't an ending but a beginning of something different, something healthier. I've been thinking about selling the house, starting over in a place without memories, maybe an apartment downtown near my office. Or maybe travel a bit. Take real vacations for the first time in years. Visit places I always wanted to see but never had time. What I know for sure is that I'm going to allow anyone to treat me like that again. I'm not going to be the older sister who always helps no matter the cost. I'm not going to be the wife who pays for everything and doesn't complain. I'm not going to be the daughter who accepts being treated like the villain when I'm the victim. I learned that forgiveness isn't mandatory, that family isn't an excuse for abuse, and that sometimes the best decision is to close doors even though it hurts. The other day I saw a post on social media, one of those motivational phrases that normally seem cheesy to me, but this one said something like, it's not selfish to protect your peace, it's survival. And I thought, yes, exactly that. I'm surviving. I'm rebuilding myself, and I'm doing it alone because it turns out I'm stronger than I thought. I don't need the approval of people who never respected me. I don't need the love of people who only wanted me when I was useful to them. Is it sad? Of course it is. Does it hurt? Every day. Do I regret throwing them out? Not for a second. And that, I guess, is the only thing I need to know right now.